Hey, what's up? This is EJK. This is going to be a quick analysis video between an engagement between CJ Hush versus DRG played from the Code A GSL game. What I want to go over with what CJ Hush does in this game is how he expertly sets up and progresses his army posture to create the maximum efficiency of his units. For a quick recap of the game leading up to the fight, CJ Hush was able to do a good amount of damage with double Oracle Harass and some light adept pressure, and as a result DRG, now that he's moving out, DRG has had to cut a lot of his a lot of things to be able to afford this kind of an army because of how many workers he had lost earlier on. His fourth base is not saturated, he does not have upgrades, and he has an okay amount of lurkers, I guess. But his army in general has a lot of roaches and lings in it, and very few hydras. The hydras are primarily for the lurkers, and he only has 2 ravagers as well. Hush, on the other hand, has +2 attack. He does not have blink. He does not have resonating glaives on the adepts as well. And the only upgrade he does have is charge. But the +2 attack does play a pretty helpful role in making up for the lack of adept attack upgrade. Anyways, now on to the fight. What happens here is that Hush ends up, this is the main portion of his army, and it's going to split up. Part of it is going to go to the top area over here where my mouse is pointing at on the minimap, and his warp prism, which is right here, is going to be dropping an immortal to create a third flank that otherwise would not have been possible just with the pure ground army. Because of this area here, it's only accessible by the air and by something like dropping units from a warp prism for the Protoss to be able to have any units there to flank the Zerg army with. And then Hush, towards the end of the battle, uses the warp prism again to set up a 4th flank of reinforcements that he ends up warping in. And so this is very, very tactical army setup by Hush, and although DRG's army isn't the most formidable, what Hush does is he creates maximum efficiency with his army by spreading it out and doing this sort of flank setup so that his army can get the maximum value, and he's able to completely wipe out this army because of his army positioning before the fight. So let's take a look at the game here. A little bit of posturing going on, Hush trying to snipe off whatever he can. DRG is pushing forward. He wants to occupy this area, I believe, because it's such an entrenched location, and the lurker's spines go right through, as we see, and the Protoss essentially cannot attack in this direction because of the rocks and that little hill. So having the warp prism and immortal set up a flank here not only creates a 3rd avenue of attack from an inaccessible location from the normal Protoss ground army, it also forces the lurker spines to target the 1 immortal flank. So there's like 2 immortals, or there's just 1 immortal, and it's forcing at least a couple lurkers attacking it. And so the lurkers are attacking a single immortal instead of maximizing their damage on the clumped up units of this main army. And so essentially the lurkers are pulled out of the battle to engage in the flank of the single immortal, which plays a very, very big role when you only have 6 lurkers and a third of them are attacking 1 immortal. That's pretty cost efficient, or DPS efficiency right there. There's a DRG attacks right there to, DRG attacks right here. It's an interesting move by him to try to proc an immortal shield. this immortal is going to get proc. So if I just kind of fast forward it frame or second by second, that one immortal that I pointed out, see DRG goes forward, and then he right clicks on that immortal kind of. He attack moves, and then he right clicks on the immortal. So he's attacking, he's killing a couple gateway units, he's attacking the sanctuary and splitting up there, but then a single Ling also made it to the mortal as well. So I'm not really sure if that was the purpose of this attack, or if he was just trying to poke in. There's the mortal proc right there, and get something in. Here I can show that in full speed. But he seems to just proc the mortal shield and get out, and that's all he wanted to do. But this triggers Hush to use his now set up army with the flank. This part of the army was maneuvering towards the top area to set up a flank, and now this immortal from this third area is also attacking in this direction, and so Hush essentially has a 3 flank set up with his army. And the warp prism is going to fly in and land over here and start warping in units to create a 4th flank. It doesn't do it the best way, and it could obviously be controlled better, especially if they're more hydralisks. You don't want to be flying right over the army. In this situation, it's okay, but now the 4th flank is complete, and Hush is able to take a very convincing fight against DRG's lurker roachling army. I just want to point out how important this 3rd flank was to the fight itself, like how much it contributed. A single warp prism and an immortal. So the warp prism and the mortal land, and the mortal immediately starts getting shots off on this lurker before the lurker is able to proc the mortal shield. And if we just focus on this area of the map and the lurkers and the immortal and see what happens, he gets some lurkers. The lurkers had to unburrow, and then there's 3 lurkers right there in that frame. This immortal tanks every single lurker shot right here. They're all gonna fire at this immortal. All of them fire at the immortal, and then they fire at the rest of the gateway army. And then they fire at the mortal again. And the mortal does eventually get cleaned up, but only after almost single-handedly dismantling most of the lurkers in DRG's army. And DRG gets absolutely crushed.